Giancarlo, I'll just throw it to you to make a few comments about some of the things you've been doing during the pandemic and how the furlough has been treating you, which I don't imagine has been fun at all. And just so if you would go ahead and launch in, and as soon as we find Mark, we'll hear from him.
Thank you so much, Alan. First of all, hello to everyone, and I hope everyone is staying healthy and safe in your homes. My family and I have been doing okay and trying to find our time for new things to do while we wait for this crisis to go. Our youngest daughter is going to be going off to college later this month, so we're trying to keep some level sense of normalcy as much as possible, which is very hard, as Alan mentioned just a minute ago, to come up with some level of normal activity. But other than that, I mean, I have been busy learning scores and preparing music, because I do know that eventually we will get over this and we will be able to resume our normal lives and to make music. And I have to say that one of the most difficult things for me has been being away from not only the musicians in the orchestra, but all of our patrons and our supporters and everybody who is part of the Nashville Symphony family. And I guess we take it for granted that we see each other so much over the season through many performances and other activities, that now this has been, I think, the most difficult part, the personal, of not spending time with the people that make the Nashville Symphony so special, whether it's musicians or whether it's staff or whether it's board members and supporters and volunteers. But as I said, I've been very busy with music and trying to keep my work because particularly in Europe, as many of you have been reading, life is returning to normal a little bit quicker over there. And because of that, orchestras and artistic institutions are planning to resume more musical activity beginning with the fall. Actually, some current summer festivals are taking place as we speak. Of course, everything is with new health protocols. Orchestras are using social distancing in most cases. So that means that they're playing with smaller ensembles in the same stages that they used to play. And most orchestras are also doing concerts without intermission, which means they're doing performances of about 1 hour, 1 hour and 10 minutes. The audiences are allowed to come in a few minutes before the concert begins. The performance takes place, and then immediately after, everybody leaves the building. So I guess little by little, they are finding ways on how they can do this, not only artistically in a good manner, but more importantly, taking care of the health of everybody and making everyone feel safe. Personally, I have concerts scheduled in Lisbon and in Spain, and with my orchestra in Poland and in Germany this fall. And so far, I am planning to go. The only kind of caveat is the fact that, as many of you know, right now, American citizens are not being allowed to travel to Europe because of the current situation of the virus here in America. But fortunately, there are exceptions. And I know that all of these orchestras that I mentioned before in Europe are already working and doing the bureaucratic process to get me one of those exceptions, so I am able to travel to Europe and conduct these performances that were already scheduled before all of this crisis happened. But as I said, we had to change the program. We're now doing much smaller repertoire. But to me, as I said, it's very important to get back into the music making, which has been, one of the most difficult things, as I say, to do, is not spending time with my colleagues, not only here in Nashville, but around the world. I do have to say that as a conductor, of course, we don't make any sound. So I have tried to keep in good shape physically, and I hope that when I finally do get in front of an orchestra, that my bones will not start cracking immediately, because again, it's been very hard to do this at home. But I have tried to take care of myself from a physical point of view, and have been going out and taking long walks. This morning I went out for a lovely walk out on Concord Park. So I do, as I said, know that eventually we will all be able to come back and be together. And I do have to say that I do know, and it may be just the optimist in me, that this may happen sooner than later. I do know, I have great faith in not only our institution, but I have great faith that eventually the world, which is now involved in this whole crisis, will figure this out. I mean, there is no way that this can continue for much longer, because I mean the damage that this is doing to the world. I mean, it's not just here in America or in cities. I mean, this is something that is happening across the globe. Every single person in the world is being affected by this, and I do have to say that it has been very inspiring, but also very worrisome to see how some of our colleagues have been dealing with this, because I mean, for many of them, basically. They lost their way of earning an income. And so that unto itself not only brings problems financially, but more importantly, psychological. So I do believe that this is across the board in the entire world. So there's a part of me that believes that some people who are very smart are going to come up with a solution that will be able for us to get back to our normal life, because as this goes longer, it is definitely becoming a larger problem. And with that being said, I feel very confident that the Nashville Symphony, with our great leadership, is already setting up and getting ready for when that moment happens, that we're able to resume. And of course, with the help of all of our supporters in the city and all of our staff and everybody, we will be able to make it happen, as I mentioned before, not only with the great level of artistic production that you're used to, but more importantly, following all the health protocols that need to be done. So with that being said, I hope that everybody's staying safe, and I miss every single one of you. And I am sure, and I'm very hopeful that we will be able to see each other before too long.
Thank you, Giancarlo. And before we move on to Jess and you talking a little bit about artistic successes that we've had in the last year, I do want to turn to Mark Peacock now. We're glad we found you. And speaking of working to find solutions, Mark is on the front lines every day, and he can't stay with us throughout this entire meeting because he's got to go back into the COVID ward, right, Mark?
Yeah.
To help patients at St. Thomas. So, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you all. Sorry I was lost in the ether space. I'm not sure I was worth waiting for. But this is our annual meeting. Although we have not been on stage since March, a lot has been going on, and it's worth to reports of what we have done and what we plan on doing. We have just had a regular board meeting an hour ago, elected our new chair, Pamela Carter, who is really fantastic, who is going to work with Alan and lead us into the re-imaging of this organization and get us back on stage. And I agree with Giancarlo. I don't think it's next fall, 2021. I just don't believe that. I think we'll be back earlier than the doom and gloom of our earlier resolutions. But I think we really had to make those resolutions to have clarity and really give us the opportunity for planning, without external issues. That said, I'm so sorry that we are not on stage, but we have to wait. We have to have a time where the musicians can be on stage safely. We have to have a time where people can be in the Skirmahorn safely. We're working to that. But I'm very, very confident that we have the right people. The new board members that we've elected today are fantastic. Alan and his team are fantastic, as you already know. And we're going to keep everyone up to date. This is, I think, our third sort of virtual town hall. And if we've learned one thing, this Zoom technology actually works. I mean, we have 300 people on right now. And thank you all for showing up.
Yeah. And Mark, I would like to say a very special thank you to you, not only for what you're doing on the front lines of this pandemic to help patients in St. Thomas Hospital, but also for your great leadership of the Nashville Symphony over not just this last year. You stepped back into a role that you had formerly occupied about 4 years ago. I guess you started in that role as chairman of the board, and your leadership was needed at a time when our then chair, Kevin Crumbo, had to go to work for the city. And thank goodness he did that, because he's been needed there in so many ways. And your willingness to step back in was really tremendous. And so we all owe you a big debt of gratitude for your leadership. So thank you, Mark. And I want to make sure that we all express that.
It was my absolute honor to come back in. We do owe Kevin a great deal of thanks. He really made us look at details that I think perhaps during my first term we weren't looking very closely to, and I think we were prepared for a lot of the future because of Kevin. So thank you to him. And again, Pamela's going to be fantastic. So I'm glad to have done this little transition. I can't say it was as fun as the first term, but
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Mark. And at this point, next on our agenda, we'll hear from Jessica Slace, who is our Vice President of Artistic Administration, and she'll talk about some of the great work that was done by the orchestra and the concert activity pre-pandemic. And so, Jess, you and Giancarlo both, I think you're going to sort of share this moment.
Thanks so much, Alan. Yeah, I'm really pleased. Thanks everyone for joining us to take a moment and reflect on some of our artistic highlights from the 1920 season, and especially as we've been without the live orchestral music that we love for over 4 months. Under Maestro Guerrero's leadership, the classical series always showcases the orchestra in its full breadth of repertoire, from classical favorites to contemporary American works, a particular specialty of ours, of course. And one of the things I think that is particularly exciting is when we're able to feature our own musicians as soloists. And this season, we had virtuosic performances by our concertmaster, Jun Iwasaki, on the Bartok first and second Rhapsodies, with a wonderful guest conductor and favorite, Larry Foster. And Paul Jenkins, Derek Hawks, Stephen Brown, and Gilbert Long, our incredible trombone and tuba sections showcased the power and incredible nuance of the low brass in Jennifer Higdon's Low Brass Concerto, which was recorded. This season, we were also just beginning our celebration of Beethoven's 250th anniversary with the Birthday Bash with Giancarlo, and he had planned a fantastic year of ways to highlight Beethoven's music, but not just his particular works, but also his impact on composers that came after and even in our own time. So Giancarlo, I wanted to ask you, were there particular highlights that you wanted to mention as well, but also when you have these moments to work with musicians, your musicians as soloists with the Higdon or the Martin Concerto last season, how does your musical relationship in those moments grow? What is that like?
I have to say that this is the best, to work with the musicians from within the orchestra, not only because I know them very well musically and personally, but because also it gets a chance to showcase the amazing level of performance that we have from our own musicians from within the orchestra, that we don't have to always have to reach out and bring artists from outside of the city and outside of the country. That right here in Nashville, we have incredible talent. I mean, of course, that goes along with being Music City, but we are very fortunate to have musicians of incredible talent, and more importantly, great curiosity, that are always open to new ideas of performing not only the great repertoire from across the ages, but more importantly, championing music of our current time. And a perfect example of that was a recording of the low brass concerto by the great Jennifer Higdon, with our fabulous low brass section, trombones and tuba, and which, by the way, was the last concert we did before we went into shutdown mode. But that was fortunately put into a recording and eventually will be released. And once again, it's a great way not only to showcase the orchestra, but specifically musicians. So it makes it very easy for me to work with them, because I know them so well, and I know, more importantly, that the musicians from the orchestra want to play even better than ever, because it is their own colleagues who are up there, I guess, in the hot seat as soloists. So it's all very exciting when we do this.
Great, thank you so much. And you're seeing there Jennifer Higdon on stage with the low brass section, and this segues nicely to the fact that we are so fortunate that many of the contemporary composers that we work with are excited to travel to Nashville and join us for the rehearsal and performance process of their work, which also takes it to the next level, especially then when it's a recording and we're putting it on record for all time. And this year, in addition to Jennifer, Adolphus Hailstork joined us earlier in the season when Giancarlo performed his American Port of Call. And in the recording realm, we had another amazingly active year. In addition to the Higdon, Giancarlo and the orchestra completed work on a John Adams disc with his piece My Father Knew Charles Ives, and also began an American organ concerto exploration with soloist Paul Jacobs, and the first work this winter was Horatio Parker's Organ Concerto. Unfortunately, our final planned recording for the season, Gabriella Lena Frank's Conquest Requiem, was among our postponed concerts and will come at a later date. But this summer, from Naxos, we have a trio of CD releases. It's an embarrassment of riches this summer. It's fantastic, with the Nashville Symphony's latest recordings of works by Aaron J. Kernis, Christopher Rouse, and Tobias Picker, all arriving in June, July, and August. But in addition to this incredible wealth of work and interaction with these preeminent composers of our time, we're also incredibly committed to fostering the growth of young composers and their emerging careers. And last September, we hosted our third Composer Lab and Workshop and welcomed 5 outstanding young composers for an intensive week of activities led by Giancarlo and composer Aaron J. Curtis. Gabriella Lena Frank, who I mentioned, Kip Winger, our musicians and staff also contributed really critical feedback and learning opportunities to the composers that week. Following the performance, Giancarlo was really excited to announce that he's committed to performing all 5 of these works from the 2019 Composer Lab on an upcoming subscription program, which is, even in 3 labs, really unprecedented, and just speaks to what is coming to Nashville and just the incredible work that's happening. So Giancarlo, I wanted to throw back to you here too as well. Could you tell us a little bit more about your experience working with this fantastic group of emerging composers?
Well, this has to be one of the projects that I'm the most proud of many things that I have been able to achieve with the Nashville Symphony. But this one is very exciting because it goes to the heart of one of the most important things that the Nashville Symphony's vision is for the future, which is really championing the great music of living composers. And in this case, we are championing the next generation, composers that are at the beginning of their careers, but still need the support of orchestras like the Nashville Symphony to perform their music. Otherwise, we will never know about them. And more importantly, not only performing their music, but putting the entire weight of our institution to promote them and to support them, because in many ways, we discovered them and we gave them the chance to perform their music. So having not only the incredible help of Aaron J. Curtis, who's been the kind of curator, along with Kip Winger and along with Gabriela Lena Frank, we mentor these young composers and provide them with the necessary tools for them to pursue a successful career, never forgetting that it was the Nashville Symphony that gave them that first shot. I do also have to mention that the musicians of the orchestra, because they are so comfortable in the realm of working with living composers, provide incredible support and incredible advice to these young composers on how they should continue composing for orchestras and what musicians are looking for. So the fact that all 5 pieces last September were so incredible that it was almost like having to choose which is my favorite children. It's like lightning striking 5 times in the same spot, and I just could not avoid not championing these pieces and putting them in our main subscription series. So our entire audience in Nashville will get a chance not only to hear their incredible music, but also to get to know these composers. So this is something that I'm very proud of, and this is one of the projects that will continue in the future as we initiate our activities. We will have another composer lab, and we will continue discovering those next voices in American composition.
Thank you so much. Another key component I want to mention that's really key to our artistic success and our ability to basically program without hesitation anything that we would like is our incredible volunteer chorus under the direction of Tucker Biddlecombe. This year, some of their highlights were Rachmaninoff's The Bells and Vaughan Williams' Serenade to Music earlier in the fall. And for the Vaughan Williams, Tucker was able to draw 13 soloists from the chorus, which often are hired roles outside of the chorus performing the work, but they all stepped up and did an incredible job, in addition to our annual Messiah performances and taking on a really challenging setting of Bob Dylan songs with the orchestra this winter. Like I mentioned, unfortunately, the recording that they would have been part of for the Conquest Requiem is postponed, as is an invitation they have to perform at Carnegie Hall. However, they've been using their pandemic time incredibly well too, connecting via virtual rehearsals and even working with Giancarlo and Gabriella Lena Frank online for many weeks. And Tucker is also finishing up a virtual choir project that over 100 of our members participated in by recording themselves and submitting, and that will be shared in August. Finally, to conclude, I'd just like to mention a few highlights from our conductors this season. In addition to the projects we already covered for Giancarlo, he led an incredibly stunning performance of Shostakovich's Fourth Symphony in the fall, which included, if you were there, an incredible exploration of the historical context of the work, which was a really special weekend. And in January, we were so thrilled to welcome Giancarlo and his colleagues from the Wrocław Philharmonic Orchestra for a concert at the Schermerhorn as part of their North North American tour. The performance featured works by Polish composers and was a really unique opportunity for Giancarlo's other orchestra to experience our incredible hall and for musicians from both orchestras to meet and greet after the concert. We also welcomed Nathan Aspinall as our new assistant conductor this year, and he's been leading education programs, community concerts, the Star Wars program, and has very ably supported Giancarlo, guest conductors, and soloists during the rehearsal, performance, and recording process. This was also Enrico Lopez Yanez's first season as principal Pops conductor, highlighting his curation of the Pop series and continuing his work on the Family series. We had blockbuster performances with Trisha Yearwood and Foreigner, and started our first annual Music City Christmas program with Kelly Pickler and a full Broadway cast. Enrico also created a great partnership with Plaza Mariachi this year, leading the building of relationships with contacts at Plaza Mariachi and curating a fantastic program with over half a dozen Latin American countries represented. So this is my opportunity to bring in my fantastic colleague Kimberly McElmore, and for her to carry on with our education and community engagement work.
Thanks, Jess. I hope everyone is doing well tonight. I wanted to kind of start off and say that despite all of the delays and postponements and or cancellations with COVID, the education and community engagement department has been really successful throughout the season. We've been able to reach over 20,000 students and community members throughout our programming up until March. And that's a really fabulous number, despite having the last 3 months of the season go away due to COVID. One thing I wanted to highlight were the ensembles in the schools program. This is the first year that we started a residency program with the ensembles in the schools program. And we targeted 5 schools in the community, 3 of which were Metro Nashville public schools. The other being Harris Hillman and Tennessee School for the Blind. And these schools actually got repeat engagements with our ensembles and actually got an opportunity for every one of our education ensembles to visit their school and interact with the students. And that's a program that we're hoping to continue into the future and even expand into more schools for that residency. We have 6 education ensembles, and they actually reached over 3,000 students through that program this year. So it was really exciting to see all that they have done. One other program I'd love to mention is our YPC program. And
I'm going to guess that something happened to Kimberly's internet connection.
can you all hear me?
Now we can.
Oh,
There
great.
you
I'm
are.
so sorry. I'm not sure what happened. I'm back. I think I probably had an issue around YPC, so I'm going to jump back there. I wanted to mention our Young People's Concerts. We had 85 schools and hundreds of homeschool groups take part in that program this year. Over 11,000 students total attended 10 full orchestral performances throughout the season, which is really remarkable. We actually were able to perform all of our Young People's Concerts throughout the year, so that's a very exciting thing for us to have done this year. And something else I wanted to highlight was our sensory-friendly offerings. And we actually had sensory-friendly materials available at over 60 performances, 5 programs throughout the season, which is very, very exciting for us. We've been working in recent years to grow our resource pool for our sensory-friendly offerings, and essentially they're learning aids, social stories, and accommodations for individuals with disabilities that we're able to offer through currently 5 of our programming programs, and hope to offer with all of our programs in the future. So that's a part of our programming that we're really hoping to expand and are excited to see in the future. I did want to highlight one of our other education programs, specifically the Accellerando Initiative. This was the 5th year of our grant period, and the 1920 season, we had 19 students take part in the program. And even though they had to adapt the end of that season to learning remotely with COVID, they were still able to have over 568 private lessons, 15 performances throughout the year. So the students, which isn't surprising, actually adapted really well to a virtual setting and learning remotely, and did a fabulous job of being nimble and on their feet about that change. I did want to highlight our 3 seniors this year, Emily Martinez Perez, Bernard Equazi, and Mario Shaw. And these 3 students, I have to just really give them a lot of kudos because they navigated the college application and School of Music audition process during COVID, which was a task, and they did it wonderfully. And between the 3 of them, they were accepted to 14 universities or conservatories, and were offered over $261,000 in scholarship funding, which is amazing for these students. They will all be majoring in music in the fall. One will be attending Indiana University, one will be attending University of Memphis, and the third University of Tennessee in Knoxville. So we're very proud to have them go on and enter their collegiate careers. In addition to those 3 seniors, we also had a junior, Xavion Patterson, who's pictured here. And he actually was a finalist for From the Top's Jack Kent Young Artist Award, and was awarded $15,000 towards the purchase of a new instrument. Those bassoons, they're a hefty price, so we're really proud of him, and we'll know that'll come in handy when purchasing a new bassoon. And he was actually accepted to Colburn's pre-college program a year early. So he'll be attending Colburn Conservatory in the fall. And he's finishing high school remotely this summer and at the beginning of the fall, and then we'll join the conservatory. So we're really proud of him going on and studying music performance with our other 3 seniors. I did want to also take this opportunity to send a huge thank you to our main donors for the Accelerando program, the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, Nissan, and Kathy and Bob Olson. This program has had a lot of success in its first 5 years, and it just wouldn't have been possible without generous contributions from these donors and other community members who have supported this program. So thank you so much. And we are in the process of applying for another round of funding with Andrew W. Mellon, and we're excited to enter our last year of the first grant cycle and see where this program goes and the success of these students in the years to come. One last part I wanted to mention tonight was I wanted to mention some community programs that we wanted to highlight from this season. Even though a lot of our summer programs and our summer community concerts were canceled this season, we still had plenty of opportunity to engage with our community. Specifically, I wanted to mention the MLK Let Freedom Sing performance, and we did have community performances in Dixon at the Renaissance Center and at Plaza Mariachi that Jess mentioned. And that partnership with Plaza Mariachi really was I have to, give Enrico some credit there because he did a wonderful job of curating this performance. And I think this performance really highlights the depth that we want to engage with community partners moving forward and making sure that we are reaching all areas of Nashville and serving the entire community. So it was a very exciting program and one that we hope continues into the future next season. I also wanted to mention the Chamber Music Series as a part of our community concert series. The Chamber Music performances, completely curated by the musicians, we performed 5 of the 6 Chamber Music Series concerts this year, and I'm excited to say that we actually had the largest attendance ever at a Chamber Series concert this season at our Beethoven concert, actually, with over 700 people in attendance. And you might have noticed in the last year, we actually turned the Chamber Music Series concerts around so that the audience was seated in the hall. And we hope to just see those continue to grow and have community members join us for those performances. At this point, I wanted to throw it back over to Alan, and I think he's going to talk about some other updates from the season.
Yes, thanks, Kimberly. So the first thing that I wanted to do is now talk a little bit about where we are since the pandemic hit. And of course, in March, as the pandemic spread across the United States, the orchestra, along with the rest of the music industry, was among the first to have to close because, after all, we're in the crowd business. And in fact, on March 11th, I actually reached out to Sean Henry at the Predators, and the two of us organized a meeting of all of the venue leaders from across the city. We met that afternoon with the mayor as he learned about our intent to bring everybody together, and that resulted in the decisions around closing a number of the venues, sort of concurrent with, it was the very day actually that the NHL also made the decision that they would have to close down the NHL season. So that was just a few days before the city then ordered everybody onto the safer at home lockdown. And so we were absolutely among the first to close. The closure meant that we ended up canceling some 60 concerts between then, the beginning of March that is, and the end of our season at the end of July. And remarkably, our musicians were able to make some adjustments very quickly. They are so committed to playing their instruments and to performing music for our community that they engaged in a number of what I think are very interesting and in some cases very entertaining projects in producing virtual content. There were our principal trombonist, Paul Jenkins, and his wife, Anna Spina, performed a trombone duet for their infant son. Composer, violist Chris Farrell performed a lovely duet with Julia Hargenday. Our clarinetist, Catherine Kohler, featured her puppy Tilly in a performance of Strauss's Till Eulenspiel. And there was so many, just more, there was so much more that I can't even really list it all. But in addition to those solo and duo performances, the orchestra collaborated on a big project to do a sort of excerpted performance of the fifth movement of Beethoven's Sixth Symphony. And even Maestro Guerrero and our Accellerando students, along with members of the orchestra and singers from the metropolitan area schools, joined in for a performance of a work written by our then Accellerando coordinator, Bryson Finney, called We Are Nashville. And there you see an image on the screen of We Are Nashville. And it was really quite something. So, we're at the Nashville Symphony, as most of you know on this call, no strangers to adversity. We've been through some pretty enormous challenges in the past, with the economic meltdown followed by the flood, and then the subsequent restructuring that were driven by that set of challenges. And this time, though, the challenges we face are different in a couple of fundamental ways, one of which is that there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty around what we're facing today. And that uncertainty surrounds, when we can actually start performing again in our hall. Most of you, I think, know that we're in phase 2, a sort of modified phase 2 of the reopening plan of the city. And under that plan, we are actually going to have to remain closed, and we won't be able to open until we're squarely into phase 4 of the reopening plan for Metro Nashville. So when that might happen is anybody's guess, and it really just depends on the epidemiological conditions and how the city and the mayor and the leadership of our city believe we can move safely into the next phases. So there's a lot of uncertainty around this, and we though are very proud of the way the musicians have responded during this time, and our role in actually helping bring together all of the venue leaders around the community. In terms of the simple math, just to give everybody a sense of this, our payroll prior to the pandemic totaled about $1.2 million per month. And the symphony, in good times, of course, this would be a great thing, derives about 2/3 of its income from ticket sales and other earned income like building rentals. And without any of that revenue, 2/3 of our revenue essentially disappeared, and it made it very difficult to support, or actually impossible to support, a $1.2 million a month payroll. So though it is not something that any of us would have chosen, we did, and I think the board did a very good job of this, weighed the options available to us to move forward, and it was very clear that the ultimate goal of the securing the long-term fiscal health of the institution, even in the face of short-term adversity, was paramount. That it was really the duty of the board, its fiduciary duty, to make sure that the institution was here for generations to come. And so, if you will, the board was faced with sort of two choices, neither of which looked very good at the time, but clearly the right answer in the minds of our board and management team was to try and take the long view and preserve the institution so that we're here for generations to come. That is, certainly doesn't mean that we would have chosen that had we had another alternative. But we do have a great deal of confidence in our ability to navigate this and to come out the other side of this in a way that will assure the future of the orchestra. And that sort of leads me, that sort of math equation to, and I should mention that we were able to get a PPP loan from the CARES Act funding that was provided by Congress. And that PPP loan, which is forgivable, was able to secure an additional essentially 2 months of employment for the musicians and the majority of the staff who were ultimately furloughed when that loan ran out. And I want to acknowledge First Bank, who's been a great partner of ours, not only sponsoring our Pop series, but they're one of our key banks. And the team over at First Bank did a fabulous job of helping us navigate that. And our finance team did a great job of putting the information necessary to secure that loan together. But that led us to the end of June, where we were really left with no choice but to implement those furloughs and to take decisive action around the cancellation of the programming that we had built for 2021 prior to the pandemic. So we made those decisions. And what I'd like to do now is kind of segue over to Mary Lewis, who is our Chief Financial Officer, to give you kind of a quick update on how the pandemic affected our current year's operation that is ending on July 31st, what our budget prospects look like for the coming season. And so, Mary, if you would do that really quickly, that would be great.
Yes, thank you, Alan, and thank you for everyone attending today. I hope everyone is staying safe and well, and thank you for all of your support. As Alan mentioned, we did have some hard decisions to make at the end of June, and we have a budget that for fiscal year 2021 that has just been approved. Stepping back a moment, for the fiscal year 2020, the impact of coronavirus on our revenue, cancellation of concerts, events, and the like was about $8.6 million negative. We did, on the support side, we're going to achieve a little over $8 million for this fiscal year 2020. As Alan also mentioned, we did receive our PPP loan that was actually, we were able to maximize that loan. The total amount was slightly over $2.8 million, and we believe, based on calculations and estimates that we have already completed to date, that about 95% of that loan will be forgivable. So in spite of the fact that we did have a shutdown mid-March, I think we were able to offset and mitigate further expenses over the course of the year. So moving on to the fiscal year 2021 budget for a moment. Our new budget reflects the state where the hall is shut down for the fiscal year. And of course, our hope is to have that open at an earlier time, provided the medical protocols are safe and we essentially move to that phase 4. As you all know, we're in phase 2 today. So our fiscal year 2021 budget reflects a small surplus of about $36,000. And really what's driving that is really our support line. We're budgeting about $6.2 million of support. We also have a little over $1 million in operating revenue budgeted, and that really stems primarily from our endowment earnings. And we're planning to do potentially some events in July of 2021. Our expenses are about $6.4 million, and that really reflects a retained staffing level of about 20 full-time equivalents, as well as cost and insurance to keep our building maintained, as well as the payment of health insurance for our furloughed team members through 12/31 of this year. Moving to the next slide. This is our unrestricted cash projection. So my controller and myself, my entire finance team, which is 3 of us, we focus very heavily on monitoring cash from a daily, weekly basis. This quarterly cash flow projection is reflective of the cash activity, which is cyclical, that will occur over the course of the quarters in our budget. This scenario on the ending cash is actually already improved. That number is about $1.8 million now, but really the main point on the cash is we're monitoring this very closely, and we're looking at unrestricted cash, which this means that this is cash that we can spend for operations in the budget. One point I wanted to make, we do have some restricted cash on the balance sheet for building type, capital fixed assets, expenditures, and that number is about $1.6 million. And we also have some other investments totaling about $1.6 million or so that we could use potentially for refunds, which we have been issuing some ticket refunds. Our estimated rate currently is about 20%. That's everything I have on the financial presentation today. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. And now what we'd like to do is have you hear from some of the management team about a lot of the current work that we're doing around planning and working toward making good decisions using data. We are using some research. And so I'll just turn it over quickly now to Dan Grossman, our Vice President of Marketing. Dan will give you an update on some of the survey work that we've been doing with our patrons to determine, there's the legal question of when we can reopen, but there's also the question of when and under what conditions will our audience members be able to return or be willing to return in sufficient numbers to drive our revenues. So Dan, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you all for participating in our annual meeting today and for supporting us in a multitude of ways. We miss our musicians, our staff, and all of you deeply. Since March, our marketing focus has shifted from consumer engagement and retention to understanding our rapidly evolving reality and implementing strategies to support our institution in crisis. And we first turned to consumer research. And we're asking, what is the evolving perspective of our audience during this pandemic, and how might we interpret and positively impact their likelihood to return, as well as engage and support us through these unprecedented times? We partnered with Wolf Brown and its global tool, the Audience Outlook Monitor, which consists of 500 study partners. And this survey is deployed twice monthly to a set of random customers, and it helps us understand their perspective and helps us make informed decisions about how and when we're going to restart our programming. We've also teamed with Philadelphia and Cleveland symphonies to co-learn and strategize together around this data. The bottom line results for the Nashville Symphony through the first 4 deployments are that 76% of our audience will not return until conditions improve. And as cases spike, propensity to not return is trending upward towards 80% over the past 2 deployments. 94%, however, are eager to return to the Nashville Symphony when it's safe to do so. And also 96% have not made cultural ticket purchases within the past 2 weeks. So what conditions, you might ask, motivate people to return? Well, a quarter of them will return as soon as it's legally allowed. The rest are either waiting for infection rates to drop to zero, better widespread testing, a vaccine or immunity, or they're just not sure. Also, statistics show us that people are more, at least somewhat comfortable eating out at a restaurant right now at 54%, than going to a movie theater or the gym or using public transportation or even flying domestically. And as far as live performance demand, 84% have not made firm plans in the past 2 weeks to attend any lectures, performances, movies, or museums. These are either paid or free. We asked about wearing masks to our concerts, and half will. However, 14% will not, and the rest are still undecided. And what about loyalty and financial support to our symphony? 2/3 of those who responded thus far to our survey are current or former season ticket holders. Out of everyone who responded, most of them, approximately 90%, will spend as much or more on tickets and donations to the symphony than they did previously when they returned. So that's good news. Please note, though, that 1/3 of our respondents have had a loss of income due to COVID. Half have someone vulnerable in the house, and 1/4 know someone who has personally become sick with COVID or have become sick themselves. So our key takeaways here are that, number one, people are eager to return, but they want conditions to improve. Also, people want to decide for themselves when it's the right time to return, and conditions like cleanliness, masks, and social distancing will help people feel better about coming back. And folks are somewhat likely to support us in the midst of this crisis. There's a certain interest in paying for live streaming concerts to our concerts, live streams. And communication and engagement are very important to keep and strengthen our customer relationships in this time. And with a now solid understanding of our audience perspective, we seek to communicate, endear, and gain support. Educating our customers is vital in this process. We hope to teach our audience specifically how we've been impacted by this crisis and how we've responded and why. And it's essential to build trust through transparency. So we developed the Nashville Symphony Patron Pledge. And we pledge to be transparent with you, our customer, about our process each step of the way and to provide you with compassionate, considerate customer service. Your patronage is the foundation of the Nashville Symphony's success, and we are here to return that investment. By taking care of your needs. We also seek to activate our customers and retain our concert tickets. We hope to inspire our base of ticket holders to support us in various ways, and this effort will protect and strengthen the institution, our financial position, and our ability to reemerge as a meaningful contributor in our lives, in the lives of all our constituents and the community. On July 15th, we launched the customer ticket option window, and we asked 9,200 households with pending tickets for 140 postponed concerts to register their ticket holder request online by August 31st. And ticket holder options are to donate those tickets back to us as a tax deductible contribution. And they could also keep their tickets for or credit for the rescheduled concerts or series. They could convert that to an on-account credit they can use through July of 2022, or they can request a refund, which we asked to be done by August 31. And to mitigate refunds, we're calling customers one by one to talk about the other options and how supporting us through this time will help steward the symphony and keep us stronger as we resume our activity. Thank you for your patience as we reach out to everyone. We also created the Sustainer Program, an effort to encourage customer support to Symphony in this very challenging time. We're asking customers to donate and keep their tickets with us, and that will play an active role and vital role in helping bring us back better than ever. And they'll know that that's an investment in our mission to inspire our community and our audiences. And as a symphony sustainer, customers will have the inside track. They'll get updates on our insights, on our artistic planning progress. They'll also get early access to our concerts, and we'll show our appreciation by thanking these constituents on our website, in public, and at the Skirmerhorn. And symphony sustainers will be first in line to experience our restorative power of live orchestral music when we return. And if you're a season ticket holder, we'll save your seats. And so we thank you very much. And I would like to pass this over to Steve Brosvik now, who's going to present on our reopening and our audience safety protocol. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Good evening, everyone. It's great to see you virtually as we work through our annual meeting and have some contact with you. And it's great to be able to present some of the information about what we've been working on while we're in this intermission period, waiting to have everybody back in the hall. And we have been working on elements of our safety plan, and we've been doing it in stages as we've reopened smaller sections of the Skirmerhorn for office and operational use. And that planning is continuing and becoming more complex as we add layers to what we're looking at, how we're reviewing it, and how we're incorporating ideas to get everybody back into the hall. The plan that we're developing is informed by CDC guidelines, study of peer organizations and performance conditions, our own detailed internal conversations, and review of external studies as new knowledge is shared with us. We're in the mid stage of this work. We have a ways to go before we feel fully confident that we have everything set. But we've already been reviewing socially distanced seating capacities in the concert hall. We've done a seating review for distancing musicians on stage. And we've worked through backstage plans and restrictions for our guest artists and access to backstage, because that will all need to change moving forward. Our next steps are going to include further discussion about musician and safety protocols within the staff and with our musicians, and completing a full review of the lobby and guest procedures. Some of the things that we're working through with a number of additional questions, including how will we scan tickets and cell phones, implications for assisting all of our guests at the box office. Will we be able to have a will call window? How will we manage food and beverage service? Will we have food and beverage service in the near term? Will there be valet parking, and how can we manage that? Do we print program books, and even restroom use? As we keep building our safety plans, we're going to keep working closely with our colleagues across the organization, gather further input, make sure everybody feels comfortable and safe. And now all of that is going to shape these plans as they progress. And our final plans will support resuming public activity at the Skirmerhorn while simultaneously working to protect the health and safety of our musicians, our audience members, our volunteers, our crew, and our staff. And we'll keep looking forward to sharing more information as it arises and these plans develop further. So stay tuned. We'll make sure that you're well informed. Thank you. Jonathan Norris, I think you're next.
All right. All right, so hi everyone. Jonathan Norris, Vice President of Development for the Symphony. And before I start to give you some numbers about the success we had this year, I want to be sure to recognize the importance and the impact on this success of our furloughed musicians and development team, our volunteers, our ticket office folks, our chorus, our ushers, our cleaning crew, and the entire Nashville Symphony family, including all of our patrons. We miss you terribly, and we are working as hard as we possibly can to bring you back as quickly as we can. We have again surpassed 8 million for our annual fund for the third year in a row, which under the circumstances is really fantastic. So how has it been going since March? Our patrons, you, are amazing. We have had 1,200 donors give the symphony $2.1 million since March 1st. And so for that, thank you. For context, last season, during that same period of time, March through July, we raised $2.7 million from 1,800 donors. So things have slowed down, but still the response has really been fantastic considering the circumstances. We will still end this season with over 600 more donors than the year before, which is thanks to a concerted effort to do so. This work becomes super important now for the upcoming year because our ability to make new relationships this next year will be very limited with little to no concert activity. So looking ahead to next season, FY21, we have what I call our minimum fundraising target of 6.2 million, with over 3 million already pledged. With your help, we will get there. This amount has been targeted to keep the organization at a place it can reemerge a year from now, ready to start concerts with a building in really good shape. This number does not support the possibility of concert programming this upcoming season. So we are working to raise more than that with the hope that we can find a way to begin safely programming concert activities sooner than September of 21, as Mark Peacock and others have mentioned. So how will we get there? A generous fund has been set up to match gifts 1 to 2 up to $2 million. So every dollar given for this upcoming season will mean $1.50 to the Nashville Symphony for the considerable future, which is fantastic. Other good news, we have received an NEA grant of $50,000, which was the max allowed through the CARES Act, which will go to support musician payments for community concerts once we're able to resume those. So we're excited about having that funding there and ready to go as soon as we could safely do that. We currently are in discussions with 2 national foundations very interested in funding our Accellerando program in a significant way, which, along with the generous support of our patrons like Kathy and Bob Olson and corporations like Nissan and our Symphony Fashion Show patrons who agreed to not ask for a refund for our canceled 2020 fashion show, which we recently did, will make continuing the program this upcoming season with a maximum number of students possible. The 2020 Symphony Ball chairman, Melinda Balser and Susan Holmes, are presenting an incredible virtual experience for our patrons this year. Please save Saturday, December 12th on your calendar, and more details will be coming soon. And last but not least, did you know Congress included a universal charitable deduction in the CARES Act effective March 30th, 2020? The legislation creates a new above-the-line deduction that applies for all taxpayers for total charitable contributions of up to $300. The incentive applies to donations made to nonprofits in 2020 and can be claimed on personal income tax filings next year. The measure also lifts an existing cap on annual contributions for itemizers of 60% of adjusted gross income to 100%. So as you consider your philanthropy during these challenging times, please remember the Nashville Symphony. Now I'll turn it over to our VP of Artistic Administration, Jess.
Hello again. Very briefly, just a few comments about how we're moving forward with 21-22. And it's probably the most unique challenge all of us in my shoes and my colleagues' shoes are in. Initially, of course, we shifted a lot of things from spring of 20 into the 2021 season and felt great that we had salvaged a lot of fantastic programming that we were committed to, and now we're reinventing the wheel again. So really, the biggest challenge is we're dealing with 1.5 years of postponed programming that already existed in the context of 3 to 5 years of a planning process and an arc that we had. So there are a lot of challenges here, and really our primary focus is sort of rebuilding the subscription series for 21-22 is what we want to be able to share as soon as we're able with you, and reconfirming or revising our priority for the years ahead as best fits our new situation. I think this is especially true when it's related to our investment in commissions and recording work, and keeping our commitments to guest artists and to you, even if some of those re-engagements take a little bit longer than others. Over time, we believe in all that programming and want to bring it to our stage. And all of this is really balanced with some real world practicalities, of course, scheduling challenges on our side and artist side, and who's going to be able to travel, how they're maybe redoing an entire long tour. So the continued communication with my artistic manager colleagues and booking agents to keep them up to date on what our evolving situation is, and just to keep us in Nashville at forefront in their calendars as everyone is juggling and vying for dates. But I think the consistent takeaway there is that all the guest artists are just as excited to get back to the stage and to Nashville and performing as we are. And we're looking forward to being able to share that with you as soon as possible. Thank you.
I also wanted to jump back on and just share a really brief update about all things education and community engagement moving forward. Our programming is really, it's adapting for the new virtual landscape, and we are seeing how we can take existing programming and put it in a virtual space in addition to curating new content. Our summer pilot program is a good example of that, and how we might serve the community in the coming months virtually. Our website and resources that will be offered there in the coming months will be robust, and hopefully a great place for our community members to look in the new hybrid/remote and hopefully in-person setting that schools are looking at for the fall and possibly the spring. I also wanted to mention that the Accellerando program is planning to start its season in a distance learning model with private lessons and master classes, and even music theory class and orchestra starting remotely and virtually, and then hopefully moving in person as the year progresses. But the Education and Community Engagement Department is really committed to serving the community, and we're excited to grow new partnerships as we navigate and look forward to a post-COVID-19 landscape. So with that, Alan.
Thanks, Kimberly. So we want to bring Steve Brozvik back here in just a moment to handle some Q&A, and then we'll talk about the board meeting that we held recently to elect officers and new directors, and then turn it over to our new chair, Pamela Carter. But first, we'll do some Q&A. And before we do that, though, I want to take a moment to say a very deeply heartfelt thank you to Steve Brozvik, who leaves us during the first week of August. He'll be heading to Salt Lake City, Utah, where he will become the Chief Executive Officer, the President and CEO of the Utah Symphony. And we're very proud of him. We're certainly going to miss you, Steve. You've made a tremendous difference in the life of our institution, and it hardly seems like it's been 5 years, but it has, and it's gone by amazingly fast. So I want to just say a very heartfelt thank you to you, and ask everyone to join me in congratulating Steve. Steve, would you like to jump into the Q&A now?
Sure, Alan. Good evening again, everybody. First of all, thank you, Alan, and thank you, everybody, for all of your support over these 5 years. I have really enjoyed every moment that I've been here. I said it a little while ago on the board meeting call, but this is really a special place, and I've enjoyed every moment of working here. I've enjoyed everyone that I've had a chance to work with, and all of the work that we've been able to do. And as I said earlier today, I wouldn't have given myself the permission to even consider leaving here if I didn't know that the team here is in incredible shape, is full of great people who want to make sure that this organization succeeds and moves forward and continues doing even better and better work. So I'm one person amongst a great group of people moving forward with this organization. So I want to say good luck to everybody. I want to say thank you to everybody. And I know that there's good things that lie ahead. Jumping into a couple of questions, I've been trying to answer some of them as we've been going along, but we've had some ongoing questions about continued virtual concerts, and I'll answer a little bit more live, but other people can jump into this as well. One of the things we are looking at moving forward as we reimagine the way that we're serving our audiences is creating a way that we can have virtual concerts, virtual live concerts, right alongside our live concerts in the concert hall. So if you're not able to come to the Skirmerhorn, we're hoping that we will be able to find a way to then stream concerts out, and audiences, either in some cases, will be able to have access to the free concerts, which we have occasionally done, but also find a way that if people are not comfortable or able to come to the concert hall for a live performance, that people will be able to purchase a ticket and watch that concert live online. A few orchestras have started to do that. They have equipment built into their concert hall already. We're looking at what it would take to do that here, what the cost would be, and when we can get that equipment installed. Or are there several ways that we could do that, working with companies in town who can help us produce the video live and stream that out. So those are all things that we're taking a look at. There aren't complete answers yet, but it is definitely something that we wanted to investigate fully before we move forward. Let's also take a look at a couple of other questions. Jonathan Norris, I'll ask you to jump back in here too, just to reinforce a point that I answered a few moments ago. And it was a question about fundraising. And the point being made is that a lot of our gifts that we receive are for specific programs with a specific intention. And if those gifts have already been received or will be coming in, how will we continue to work with those donors and with those programs? I did respond that we always maintain the integrity of our contributions as they come in. But if you want to, you might want to jump back in and also discuss that point a little bit.
Yeah, and my video will start here in just a second. I will say that, here we go. With every single donor, if there has been a specific item or program that they are funding and we are not providing that program this next year, we are going back to every single one of them. Obviously, the symphony is in the relationship business, we're in the relationship business, and in many cases have already gone back to many of those folks and have talked with them about how we can either reallocate those funds to things that we are spending money on this year, or can they allow us extra time to utilize those funds on the programs that they initially wanted to fund. So in many cases, due to the circumstances, our funders have been willing to work with us on that because they understand the unique situation that we're in.
Great. And Dan, can we get you to jump in here with me as well, and maybe even Jess, if you would like, to talk about the possibility of additional live performances or creating some small chamber music performances. And from Dan, from your perspective, what you're hearing from audience members as one option, are you hearing anything from our current ticket holders that they would be willing to also come to small chamber performances or pay to have concerts streamed? And then just also thinking about some of the artistic perspectives of what we could create that wouldn't be exactly what we had originally programmed.
Would you like to go first, Jess?
Sure. I think there's tremendous opportunities and tons of ideas that have already been shared by our team and with our musicians about what could happen in different configurations. And it's just another challenge for what can we bring to the stage and in what fashion, whether it's with a very small audience that's socially distanced or recorded and streamed. And there's been a lot of chat about that on this call, and we've seen a lot of things happening around the country, and I'm really anxious to get to the point where we can do that. I am thinking of 21-22 as, something like a season like we're used to for the moment. And before that, what can we do? How can we be creative? How can we connect with everybody and have the musicians on stage?
I would agree with you, Jess. I think we want to start inspiring people through music as quickly and safely as we possibly can. And obviously, we have some of the best musicians in the world to help us do that. And I think our audience is yearning for them right now. I think there is a propensity for people to want to stream the music live if they can't be there in person. And I think that people will be interested in attending when it's safe to do so. The numbers are showing us that people are just not ready to come back. And they're going to have to see significant improvement in the numbers, in testing, in the vaccine before they feel comfortable doing that. And as I said before, Steve's working on this plan here for the safety protocols. And that's very important too, because folks really want to they're telling us they want to feel safe if and when they come in this building. So those are all fronts that we're working on. We're excited about. It's a long game, but we're in it, and we're here to serve our public and get our musicians back on stage as soon as we can.
And Jonathan Marks, I'm going to toss a question over to you quickly. Several of the questions that have come in have been really about ways to be in touch with our musicians. One of them was, is there a way that we can express to our musicians how much we miss them and how much we care about them and want to hear them back on stage? And other questions just really about being in contact with people. So what are some of the best ways through social media, et cetera, that people can go ahead and reach out and directly be in touch with some of our musicians?
Absolutely. Pardon me, I think something here. There we go.
Jonathan's also literally running the entire
All right.
Zoom.
Sorry, I'm managing multiple controls here. So, yeah, I mean, first and foremost, the musicians have their own social media platforms on Facebook and on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube. You can find them on Facebook at Musicians of the Nashville Symphony, and you can find them on Instagram and Twitter at NSO Musicians, and also on YouTube at Nashville Symphony Musicians. And so that's a great way to keep up with what they're doing and with what their latest activities are. And you can also message them directly via the social media chat functions that are available in each of those platforms. Beyond that, we are always, you're always happy to contact the Nashville Symphony directly. And if you have a message to share with a musician, we'll make sure to get it sent along that way as well. But we can't say enough just how much we miss having our musicians active and present in what we're doing, and we just can't wait to get back to what it is that we've been chartered to do, which is share great music with the community.
Great, thank you, Jonathan. I will answer one more quick question here, and then we need to move on to the next segment, bringing back Mark Peacock. And the question is about the maintenance plan for the building, and that's a very tactical question. But I will say that we are looking very heavily at what is the air filtration system that we have. We do have already, because the building is new, we have electrostatic cleaning already that exists in our HVAC system. We are looking at levels of filtration that we can add. We're looking at how quickly the air exchange happens within the entire concert hall and on the stage. And if I remember these numbers correctly, already with the existing system, there's all new air inside the concert hall every 11 minutes and all new air over the stage every 9 minutes. And we have some control over making that in even shorter complete change time period. So all of those things are being taken a look at, and every way that we can make sure that we're keeping everything clean, safe, and ready to go once we have an audience and musicians back in the building. We're taking a look at every aspect of that. And in fact, we've got, I think it's a 52-page document from a group of performing arts centers across the country that are all providing feedback and questions and answers and elements of every element of the experience for the audience, the staff, the musicians, the volunteers, et cetera. So we're going to make sure that we have a lot of answers before we take a next step forward. And now I'm going to go ahead and welcome Mark Peacock, our board chair, back and take the next portion of our meeting.
And Steve, Mark, as you're coming back, I do want to just add one comment. First of all, I feel really blessed because we have a tremendous staff, as you all can tell from the reports that were just given. Our management team is working very hard to find solutions to our future. And I know that as we move forward, we're also going to take this opportunity in this pause to do a lot of work around visioning and thinking about what the Nashville Symphony really can be to this community. So with that, Mark, I think you're going to report on the board election we had, and
Yes.
then maybe make a few comments and turn it over to Pam.
Okay, I'm glad to get back. We had a little pause across the street. We had a board meeting today and elected our new roster of board members for the next term and the renewal of 3-year terms. Can we have that first slide? Okay. So this is our new group of board members who will be starting their first 3-year term. It's a very strong group. I'm very excited about this group. It's going to really help us reimagine our organization for the future. Right. Can we have the returning members? These are the members that are returning for a second 3-year term. I will tell you, this is the class that I most heavily recruited when I was board chair the first year. I'm very proud of this entire class. Especially, well, there's some characters here. Okay, let's move on. All right, these are members who have served their 2 3-year terms with us. They've all made very significant contributions. I've been very grateful all their time. I would like to make a special call out to Russell Bates, who was our treasurer for the past 2 years and really got into the numbers and really helped us understand where we were, where we are, and where we need to get to be. This is a volunteer role, and he did a yeoman's task, and I'm very, very grateful to him, as I am to the other 5 gentlemen on this list. All right, and then last we have the officers for next term. All right, oh, okay. So you recognize one of those guys, but we have Father Brewer. Bob Wilson has agreed to be treasurer, which is the huge job. Hank Ingham's our secretary. And then I'm proud to introduce Pamela Carter as our next board chair. We've had a lot of meetings, Pamela, Alan, and I, and I'm so excited about the future of our organization. We have the right team, the right people to lead it with Pamela in charge. Just one comment, like the coolest thing, we were talking a few weeks ago about how to deal with the media, and Pamela just said very casually, well, when I was Attorney General of Indiana, I'm like, how cool is it you can actually say that? So she's been Attorney General of Indiana, CEO of Cummings, fantastic organizer. She's already got a plan to make every board member work more than they've ever worked before. So let me turn it over to Pamela.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can see me. And if you
Yes.
can't, okay, good. First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you for all of the support you've given to the symphony over the years. Been so delighted with and inspired by each and every one of you. And I have looked at the resilience and the fortitude and the steadfastness of this symphony. I want to make sure that people recall, and if you don't know, that you will know, that in 1987, we had to shut down our symphony completely, and we rose from the ashes. In 2008, during the Great Recession, we had really challenging times, and we rose from the ashes. We had the Great Flood, and we rose from the ashes. And now we have this COVID-19 pandemic that's been unleashing its fury all over us. And it caused us to find ourselves in untenable waters and not able to continue hiring and paying for our musicians and our staff members. And we had to furlough them. And that creates huge and human hardship and ongoing uncertainty. And that we have to keep at the top of our minds. So as we're fighting to come back, we will make sure that we are fighting for our musicians and that we are fighting for our staff. And the skeletal staff that still remains, they have taken a reduction in their salary. They're working day and night, trying to keep the operations going and doing a great job, as you've all seen today. And we want to make sure that their level of uncertainty comes to an end at some point. Our donors and patrons, you've been with us through thick and thin, and we continue to do so. And we want to make sure that we are very good stewards of all of your funds and your time and effort. And as we think going forward about how to do this, I'm inspired, I'm daunted, but I'm also determined, unflinchingly so, to protect and preserve the symphony for years, decades, and generations to come. And I want you all to join me and everyone else in, first of all, thanking Mark Peacock as our former chair, thanking Steve Brosnick for all he's done, thanking every board member for the time and effort that you provided us. And also I want to thank Alan Valentine for all of his leadership and each and every one of you. But I am not going to let you off the hook. I need for each and every one of you to be ambassadors for our symphony. I need for you to make a gift to our annual fund. I want to make sure that you're donating your tickets to postponed concerts or converting them to ticket credits. I want to make sure you're volunteering your time. I want to make sure that you're advocating for arts funding when engaging your elected representatives. Purchase and stream our recordings. Tell your friends, family, and associates why you love this Nashville Symphony. And follow our musicians on social media. They are our asset, they are our resource, and they control our hearts. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, but I'm rolling my sleeves up. I'm ready to fight unflinchingly. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Pamela. And to all of our guests on this call, we want to let you know that you'll be receiving an email from us with a link to a downloadable version of the slide deck that is actually somewhat expanded from what you saw today. So you will have, in effect, the meeting presentation available to you, but with a lot more detail included, because of course that doesn't work very well on a screen. So, and I would just close by saying how excited I am going into this year to be working with Pamela. I've gotten to know her over the last few years, and it's been I'm just inspired by her. And so I'm grateful to Mark Peacock as well, and to all of our board members who are departing and rolling off the board this year. You've all done a great job, and especially Russell, who served as our treasurer. So I just want to say how grateful I am to all of them, and then especially to all of you who have been loyal supporters of the Symphony, have enabled all that we are able to do. And, you know, I really feel like all of the success that we have had has been a result of your support and the really incredible work of our fantastic musicians and our maestro, Giancarlo Guerrero, and the rest of our conducting staff. We really, we owe a round of applause to all of them. And as Pamela said, I, for one, am absolutely committed to work tirelessly to try to get everybody back on stage and to get us back in the business of bringing joy into the lives of our community. So thank you all so much for being with us today.